Hi, my name is Justin Lara. This is my capstone project for Aviation 350 at Liberty University. In this scenario, we are a CRJ 200/Alpha with an inoperative autopilot. It is important to note that we are not GPS equipped and the ILS 22 right is known to be out of service. We are planning to fly from Lynchburg to Little Rock and are determining whether or not our alternate, Baton Rouge, is legal. If we were to use it, our estimated time of arrival at Baton Rouge would be 1800 Zulu. As stated in our flight operations manual here at Liberty Airlines, we are authorized to derive alternate airport weather minimums from this table. In no case can we use an alternate airport minimum other than any applicable minimum derived from this table. In determining alternate airport weather minimums, we should not use any published instrument approach procedure which specifies that alternate airport weather minimums are not authorized. When determining the suitability of a runway, wind including gusts must be forecast to be within operating limits, including reduced visibility limits, and should be within the manufacturer's maximum demonstrated crosswind. All conditional forecast elements below the lowest applicable operating minima must be taken into account. Additives are applied only to the height value to determine the required ceiling, and when under the provisions of the minimum equipment list, those minimum equipment list limitations affecting instrument approach minima must be considered in determining alternate minima. The table explains two ways in which the alternate airport weather minimums can be determined. The first method, referred to as 1NAV, explains that for airports with at least one approach, we should add 400 feet to the minimum descent altitude or decision altitude, and 1 statute mile to the minimum visibility for the approach with the lowest minimums. The second method, or 2NAV, explains that for airports with at least two separate approaches, we add 200 feet to the higher approach's minimum descent altitude or decision altitude, and 1/2 mile to the approach with the higher minimum visibility. For the 2NAV method, the two approaches being considered must be two separate runways and have separate nav aids. Because we are not equipped with a GPS, we cannot fly any of the GPS approaches at Baton Rouge. We are left with the ILS or localizer 13, ILS or localizer 22 right, VOR 4 left, and VOR DME 22 right. On ILS 13, our minimums are 200 feet and 1/2 statute mile visibility. Because our autopilot is inoperative, the note that would have allowed the lower minimum visibility, annotated by 1, is not applicable. In this approach, remember the ILS 22 right glide slope is noted to be out of service. Instead, we must use the localizer, which has higher minimums of 410 and 3¼ statute mile visibility. For VOR 4 left, we have minimums of 551 feet and 1¾ statute mile visibility. And for the last option, VOR DME 22 right, we have minimums of 410 feet and 1¼ statute mile visibility. To determine the ceiling and visibility at our estimated time of arrival, we must look at the terminal area forecast for Baton Rouge. Highlighted in yellow, the TAF shows that at 1800, the weather will be temporarily 1 statute mile visibility, thunderstorms and rain, ceilings broken at 500 feet, with a scattered layer of cumulonimbus clouds at 2,000 feet. For 1NAV minimums, keep in mind our flight operations manual said we need to add 400 feet to the minimum descent altitude or decision altitude, and 1 statute mile to the minimum visibility. If done so for all the approaches we could use, ILS 13 shows the lowest possible alternate minimums using the 1NAV method, 600-foot ceilings, and 1½ statute miles of visibility. For the 2NAV method, remember our flight operations manual stated we need to add 200 feet to the ceiling and 1/2 statute miles to the visibility. We then select two approaches to two separate runways using two separate nav aids. The ILS 13 and localizer 22 right fit this criteria and offer the lowest alternate minimums. Because the higher ceiling between the two is 610 and the higher visibility 1¼ those will be our alternate minimums under the 2NAV method. So is it legal to have Baton Rouge listed as an alternate on our flight release? Because the TAF is showing a ceiling of 500 feet and visibility of 1 statute mile, it is not. Both these values in the TAF are below the minimum conditions required under the 1NAV and 2NAV methods. If the ILS 22 right glide slope was not noted to be out of service, however, it would be legal. Under the 1 nav method, ILS 22 right would have alternate minimums of 600 feet and 1 3/8 statute miles visibility. Because ILS 13 still has more favorable requirements, the 600 feet and 1.5 statute mile visibility would stand as our 1 nav minimums. However, under the 2 nav requirements, it would have alternate minimums of 400 feet and 7/8 statute mile visibility. We could then replace the localizer 22 right with the larger requirements with the lower numbers derived from ILS 22 right. When comparing ILS 22 right and ILS 13, we now have 2 nav alternate minimums of 400 feet and 1. The required ceilings are lower than, and the visibility is equal to the TAF, making it a legal alternate. These are my sources. And that concludes my presentation. Again, my name is Justin Lara. Thank you for watching.